Hey guys, one of the things I've been working on recently, actually it's been most of what I've been working on recently, is this sign. My friends at Rooted Books and Gifts are opening a store. It's going to be open this summer, and one of the things they asked for was a sign. I wanted to give them a gift for their grand opening, and they asked for a sign. Well, that's something I've never done. So I learned quite a bit. I don't think I invented anything, but I do have maybe some tips that might help you out if you're trying to do a project like this. As you can see, it's actually bigger than my laser can cut. And I don't know if you can tell this from the video. It's three-dimensional. So you'll see, if you can see that from the side, those letters and the tree logo, they are actually glued in on there. And I'll show you some tips and tricks how I placed that, how I was able to do something that's 32 inches or 30 inches across on a machine that'll only cut roughly 16 inches across. And so we'll start there. We're going to go back to we're going to go to the software, and I'll show you kind of how I laid this out. Okay, so here I could get all fancy and just kind of record this screen and put that in here, but that's not what I'm going to do. This isn't really a light burn video. I think you'll be able to follow along. So I was pretty fortunate with this logo. They had good graphics, so it was already available to me in a very good graphic, and I was able to just kind of break that up. So kind of ignore these boxes down here. I'll get into those in a bit. So the logo, the sign space that I had, it's a 36-inch opening in a window, and I wanted a couple inches on each side, and then I wanted at least an inch border between that. So what I ended up with was a 30-inch wide sign. So first thing I did was blow this up to 30 inches across. So that was pretty easy. And then let's see, then it's a matter of dividing that into pieces that I can cut. So at 30 inches across, the tree actually ends up being about just under 16 inches across. So I can cut that tree all in one piece with the exception of this little bit right here at the bottom. Let me just get that in there. Whoops. Let me pull that up, put that back where it needs to be. So I could get everything except for that little bit of the bottom piece, but that's pretty easy to line up. So that's one piece. And then of course the lettering came off pretty wide, but that's pretty easy because I can break that up with, do rooted with one cut, books with another, and gifts in another. The boxes you see around there. So my typical thing when I cut letters like this is I will keep that surround piece. And that's what I'll use as my alignment template when I go to glue that onto whatever other piece I'm working on. So the boxes there help me line up this word with that word. And that's what this little engraved line is right here that you can see just barely right there in the blue. So the only thing I really had to break up into 15-inch piece or the size of the cut that I could do is actually the circle here. Now, this is kind of a rough circle. It's got kind of some stuff going on there. You can see up here how it's kind of rough and broken up. I could have strategically placed a bunch of that, and then I just thought, gosh, placement on that is going to be a nightmare, as far as gluing it back up. Now, do keep in mind as well that this is going to be behind a window. It's going to be seen from a parking lot. And so people aren't going to notice some of those little details, but I want to do it right. So what I ended up doing, let me just get out here. And by the way, you see this madness? I'm just going to go in on all that stuff just so you can see it. So this is the way my brain works, right? So I'm always trying different things, well, what happens if I did that? And then here's this. And then, so basically what I did is I used the Boolean function, and I was able to cut up that circle into 4 pieces that are, just zoom that in there. That piece is 15 inches side to side and top to bottom. So what I also did is I put just a tiny little outline on there. So in addition to the actual circle pieces, you can see I also cut a piece around the outside. And what that does for me is now when I go to glue that up, I can use this piece as a template as to where everything goes. So I'll show you a little bit of that when we talk about the tree. So that's really how I broke that up into the different pieces. to be able to cut it. So here you can see my tree by itself right there, you know, and that is 16.5 by 14. So I was able to cut that in one pass. And then I came back and cut this guy right there as a second piece. So that was kind of how I broke this thing up and then got it to where I could actually put it together and piece it together. So we'll go now to some colors, because the original color is kind of a forest green, a black, and a mustard yellow. It's actually kind of like these colors you see here with solid colors. So we've got a mustard, we've got kind of a dark green, and then we have black. So let's go back. I'll reset the camera here and I'll tell you how I went about making the colors. Okay, so here we are with the finished sign here. I'm just gonna tilt that up a little bit so you can see it a little bit. So we've got this green, we've got black, and then we have this mustard yellow on the ring here. So, you know, I wanted the wood grain to show through, so I wanted to use stains of some sort. And, you know, I wasn't able to really find a pre-made green like this. Now, one of my favorite ways to dye wood and stain it is actually with these alcohol inks. And so this one's Rainforest Green. Now that one, it's a little bit brighter than what I wanted. So I did some test pieces and I ended up adding some of this Mantilla Black on there. And I ended up with this darker green here that pretty much matches their print logo perfectly. And that worked really well. So the way I apply that alcohol inks, these are alcohol inks. You buy them in a kit. You can buy individual bottles. Nice way to get started with them is to buy one of the kits. It has a dozen colors or so, and then just play with it. And what I do with it is I dilute that with denatured alcohol and just experiment. And so I was keeping track of how many drops per 100 milliliters of alcohol I was using and stuff. And I had this all written down. I actually have it all written down in case I need to do anything else for these guys. And then I just played around, stained stuff. And then I just use a foam brush and brush that onto the wood. It dries really fast. So you can actually go from staining your piece of wood to cutting in, you know, 15, 20 minutes. It's alcohol, so it dissipates really quick. Now that alcohol, I think it's pretty darn color fast. I can tell you it is on your hands. You want to make sure and be using gloves when you use this. Works great. You can get just a huge variety of colors. It's the way I do a lot of my earrings, bookmarks, and that sort of thing, to get a wide variety of colors on wood. So that was that. The black was super simple. I used some of this Minwax, what do they call this? True Black wood stain. So that's pretty simple there. For the mustard, so Minwax on their website shows this as you can get these clear tint based gel stain product, and then you can have your lumberyard or wherever you're buying this stuff mix up custom colors for you. And they show a formula for mustard, and it looks pretty mustardy on the screen when you're at Minwax's site. So I went ahead and got some of that. Well, it was too yellow. It was just too much of a bright yellow, or a standard, almost a sunshine yellow, compared to the mustard that we really wanted on the logo. So what do? Well, I started experimenting, and I needed to darken it up. I didn't want to use a black because I wanted to stay still in that same kind of color gradient as yellow. And so what I ended up with was some regular old early American. This is just a regular oil stain, and it worked really well. So again, that was a lot of experimentation, and then as I did it, I was writing all these little formulas down, stain it, let it sit till it was completely dried, do the wipe, you know, and the whole works, and then I would compare it to what we wanted. And eventually I came up with the formula that I needed. Now, when I made that, I did make up some extra. This stuff, you know, I don't know how long it would keep for me to actually make extra, so that one I just kept the formula. For this guy, it was pretty easy to make some extra, and then I'm over here in my storage stuff somewhere. Well, I've got it. Yeah, there it is. Found it. So I love mason jars. Number one, it works with my Critter sprayer. Number two, it's a nice airtight container that's reusable. And so anyway, so I made extra, put it in a mason jar, got my formula written there on the lid, and that's how I got this mustard color. For the backing, I used just whitewashed. So I'll talk a little bit about how I cut out that backing in the next little segment here. And then I just whitewashed it, which is roughly half paint, half water. Put it on, let it soak in, do as many coats as you want for the color that you want. You know, after I put some cover material on here, I used some satin lacquer, semi-gloss lacquer on here to cover everything. It did kind of lose some of the whiteness, but I still think it looks great. I really like the look of it. So let's talk about how I got to this 32-inch round, nice thick piece of wood. You can see the thickness there. That's going to hang well and be really stable in their shop. So let me grab a few things and we'll talk about that. Okay, so my big circle here. You know, if I was a real woodworking guy, I would have bought a bunch of 1x12s and then planed them and jointed them and glued them up and done all that stuff. I'm not a big woodworking guy. I'm just kind of learning some woodworking stuff and trying to improve my skills there. But now at Menards or maybe other home improvement centers, you can actually buy rounds that are pre-glued up. So it's a pine round and you can buy them pre-glued up. Now the size I needed was, I wanted 32 inches is what I ended up at, I'm pretty sure. Happen to have a tape measure here. Let's see. It's hell getting old, boys. Yep, 32 inches. Now they make, I think they sell like a 12-inch, an 18-inch, 24-inch, and then a 36-inch round. Well, 36 was going to be too wide. My opening's only 36. I wanted a little gap for the aesthetics, plus just to be able to manage it and be able to mount it without being wedged into the window. And so I ended up buying the 36-inch, which meant that I needed to take 2 inches off all the way around to get to my 32-inch round. So how did I do that? Well, I ended up with this from 3x3 Custom, Tamar 3x3 Custom. It is the 6-in-1 router template jig, I think they call it. I'm going to put a link on it because it's an awesome tool. I'm going to be using this for so many other things because it just works so well. Part of this is it's kind of like an erector set. So you get this nice base, which is great for working, but then you also get like these extension arms. You get one of these guys, this big triangle. You get all these pieces, and what you can do with that is you can make a circle jig. Now I had this about maxed out, but I was able to do a circle jig. The way I used it didn't really require, but the easiest way is to drill a hole in the center of your circle, and then the rest of the jig attaches to it, and your router follows that circle there. Now, I could drill a hole in the center of here to use this alignment pin that you see here because it's going to be covered up with the tree. So there are workarounds to not drill a hole. So if you're going to use this and you can't have a hole in the center, there's a workaround for that. It involves gluing this base plate on there that has that matching hole, adding another step on the bottom so it's all lined up, and then instead of the hole, use the glue, use the old masking tape and super glue thing to put that on your wood, drop that pin in that hole, and then you're able to use it, wedge this off, and you're good to go. But in this case, I could drill a hole. So first I went down with a 1/4-inch bit, and I went around the entire perimeter to about maybe a 1/4-inch deep. And then I used a jigsaw, and I cut inside that groove there. And then I came around on the other side, I flipped it over, and then I used a follow bit to cut away that excess, and then a round over bit to give us a nice smooth edge. Now, it did leave me with something, and this is a marketing opportunity for somebody. Let me grab this real quick. It left me with a nice 36-inch wooden hula hoop. So if you know of a market for this, or if you would like to have a wooden hula hoop, just comment below, you know, I'll swing by and pick it up. It'll be great. You could get, you know, I don't want to work on your splinters when you're done playing with it, but I don't know. I kept it around. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. It'll be a frame someday for something. So that was kind of the woodworking portion of this. That was, you know, again, a good experience. My first time with a circle jig. I am going to put a link to that deal from 3x3 Custom. It is just awesome. She has some great videos for woodworking as well, and we'll go from there. So let's talk about the glue up and how we were able to get this all in here. Okay, so I had all my pieces dyed, and I'm a big fan of dyeing or staining before you cut. I find it does a couple things. It's a lot easier than me trying to stain each one of these little individual leaves. Pain in the butt. So I'm able to dye just one big sheet and then be able to cut it out. The other thing it does, I think, as well, especially if you're using an oil-based stain, is it really helps actually with some of that residue that comes on the back. It seems like it resists that residue that you can get on the bottom side of your cuts, the smoke residue. So it really helps resist that. So I had my pieces cut, and now it's time to line it up. Well, one of the things I did, I actually took the time to cut this out of poster board. Okay, now, what did I do with this? Not a damn thing. I didn't end up using it at all. I pieced this all together, cut it out, and put it together and lined it up and all that stuff. I didn't refer to it once. That's just being honest with you. It just didn't ever come in useful. Now, it was still useful for me to do because I learned a few things. I can do templates out of this stuff. I learned how to cut and piece and do all those things. It also verified that I could cut each quarter of the sign with my machine that only handles about a 16-inch square. So it's one of those things that I didn't use, but I wouldn't call it useless. And it was fairly quick. That poster board cuts fairly quick. So I cut out all my pieces, and then basically what I did is on the computer I pulled up the graphic and I figured out where my center was, which happens to be somewhere about in here where that tree is. And that's what I found as my starting point. I drew a line here very faintly in pencil. I had my whitewashed board already whitewashed and prepared, drew that reference line with a pencil, and then I placed my tree. Now, the tree is in several pieces, and one of the tricks that I found is very useful is I keep all my background pieces. So that's what these are, okay? So you can see there's my back side, here's my front side. Now, a lot of times when you're dyeing wood, by the way, you have to dye both surfaces. Otherwise you get a lot of warp. I was dealing with 1/4-inch material here. It doesn't warp much, and especially this alcohol ink dye really doesn't warp it because it's not wet long enough to warp it. And so anyway, but I'll keep these pieces, and then what I'm able to do is when I lay out that tree, rather than have to try and figure out where everything is, I can actually put this backing piece down with a few pieces of tape to hold it in place, and then I can just drop those leaves in place. Now, how did I keep track? There's 80 some pieces in this tree here. How did I keep track? Well, as I took the leaves off, I'll put this up really close here. As I took the leaves off, I numbered them here and numbered on the back side of each leaf. And so I would refer to my chart. If I was working over here, let's see, where is that? Yeah, that's there. If I was working on this piece here, I would look and say, okay, that butterfly is number 1. And then I would look for butterfly number 1, drop it in put the glue on, drop it in the slot, good to go. Once I would complete a section, I would cover it with a piece of board with, I always have some handy, let's see if I can pick one of these up here. These are just plate steel. That's, I don't know, 1/2-inch plate steel. And I put that on there, let the glue dry, and then that's it. I can put those in place. When it's tacky, I lift it off carefully, and I'm left with this in the background. So this works great when you're piecing together something like this. Now, I didn't keep my backgrounds for the words, but same kind of thing. I cut a square that would fit this word, and then I kept that square. I also engraved on that square so I could line these two up using that engraving where they join together. And then it's just a matter of putting the glue on, dropping the letter in. When it's tacky, pull off that backer and it's perfectly lined up. So on the outside rings, kind of the same thing. I figured out where my center point was. It was gonna cross my center vertical point, and that's where I would line up something like this. Let's see, I don't know where this is from. Anyway, this is a piece that's left over that fits somewhere. Nope, not there. Anyway, this fits somewhere. I think, yeah, this would be the outside somewhere. And so I would use these pieces to line that up. And that's how I lined it all up. And then it was done. Same kind of thing. Wait for the glue to dry, good to go. and everything went in place where it should be. So for the final finish on this, I did about 4 or 5 coats of spray lacquer, some of the Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover semi-gloss is what I used. Had to look at the can over there. Some semi-gloss on here. And then I flipped it over because on the back side, we wanted to do something different. So this is the side that's going to face the window for the people passing by on the street to see. But on the back side, number one, I wasn't too enthused about doing this logo again. It's a lot of work. But I also thought it would be kind of cool on the back side to incorporate some of the design, the ring, in particular the outside ring. And then we used blackboard paint. So this is the side that's going to be facing the crowd. And you can see that my chalkmanship sucks. But I want you to go to rootedbooksandgifts.com and support my friends. It's a great way. It's an independent bookstore. You can purchase online. You can get audiobooks on there. Anyway, they're great folks. Support your local bookstore. There's my plug for those guys. So basically what I did is I first placed down my outside ring. Now this I just cut out of 3mm material, and I placed my outside ring, drew a really thin pencil line on the inside. Then I took it off, taped around that, painted the chalkboard paint. Then I glued this on, and then I taped off the chalkboard so it was covered. And then I did 3 or 4 coats of that Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover semi-gloss over the edges here to protect the surfaces here. So anyway, so that's what we did there. This is going to be suspended with cable. We'll mount a couple of eye hooks up here as part of my work, both when I was in the Air Force and as well as my full-time job in the pro audio world. I work a lot with aircraft cable, so we'll use aircraft cable and suspend this. It'll hang with a couple carabiners. You'll be able to pop off the carabiner, set it down, put your new announcement on the chalkboard, hang it back up, or dust it, or whatever you need to do. So that's it. I can tell you, with any project like this, there's a lot of hours into it. My friend said, "Oh, I'm going to really promote this like crazy." And I said, "Don't," because you know, this was a labor of love. I love my friends and really wanted to gift them something special. But this isn't something I want to do for a living. I would have to charge way too much to make this. Nobody'd buy it, you know. And you know, that's not saying it can't be done quickly. It certainly could be done quickly if you have an industrial laser. You wouldn't have to do as many passes. You might even have a work area that's big enough to do this if you have an industrial laser. So you wouldn't have to piece things together. By the way, I didn't mention that. So there's a little tiny where you can see where I pieced these together. But you know what? I thought about, you know, carving that out, filling it with wood putty, staining that, doing all this stuff. And then I thought, people are going to see this from 30 feet away in their car as they drive by. And it's behind a window. Nobody's going to see it, and except for me. And I don't even notice it really. So. But anyway, if you have a large enough laser, maybe you could make this a doable thing to actually make money on. For me, it was a labor of love. So I hope you learned something. I learned quite a few new tricks, and that's really what I get a charge out of. Anytime I can learn something new, to me, that's a win. And I did learn quite a few new little tricks to make this possible. So. There you go. Support your local bookstore. By the way, if you like the sound on this, I'm going to leave a link to this microphone. This is the new Shure Move mic, and I love it for the video. So obviously this is probably the best audio I've had on any of my videos, pretty close. And so if you like that, I'll put a link in the description. It's a fantastic product, and give it a shot. It's well worth the money, I think. Audio is one of those things that really bugs me when I watch a video and there's bad audio. So being able to add this to the arsenal is a really tremendous thing. So there you go. Be well, do good work, and I'll see you down the road.